time from a very busy schedule. Today's guests have quite a few things in common, we found out. They are both of Chao ancestry, very talented people. They both are fortunate to have had scholarly parents who encouraged them to pursue their own interests, notably science fiction, today's topic. So Stanley, sorry, he's a spy partner, as Chu Zhaoyan from Shantou. He went to Beijing Dashi to study Chinese film. Then went to work for Google and its Chinese counterpart, Baidu. He's now working in VR technology. That's virtual reality for those of us who are quite up to date. And he's an award-winning writer of science fiction, you can see from the poster. He's published many novels and short stories, including one written entirely in classical Chinese. Something really difficult to do. Literally something which you learn to make up. One of many talents, multilingualism. And second guest, Jedd Jong, is also a Georgian on his mother's side, Chao ancestry, and a rising star as a film critic in Singapore. You may have seen his blog, The Movie of Me, and he's a regular writer for F*** magazine. That's a leading film magazine in Singapore, and apparently the stars stand for film, fame, and fact. You may have seen him on Twitter as Jedd the Jedi, and he's on the airwaves in Singapore. He's on the radio as Jedi the Movie Guy. So you can see that his parents chose his name. Today Jedd has to move on. At 3 o'clock he has to go off to Tokyo, where he's been invited by Netflix to interview the actor Brad Pitt. Wow. Something to look forward to. Great to have you both. And I know Jedd is an experienced interviewer, so would you like to start off with some questions for Stanley?
Thank you. So I wanted to start off with where both of us come from in terms of our influences and what we grew up on. So Stanley, what did you read or watch as a child that sort of grew your love for science fiction?
Yeah. I remember when I was a kid in kindergarten, because my dad worked in a research institution, so I went to his lab, and there's a lot of popular science and magazines, so I read a lot of Jules Verne and Isaac Newton and Highline, so also authors in class. So I started to read some classical science fiction over there. And besides that, because I live in Shantou, it's very close to Hong Kong, so I get some benefit from TVB and those channels. So I watch a lot of Star Wars, Alien, Star Trek. So I started watching those sci-fi movies since I was a kid. So I got a lot of influence from that. So my favorite is, my all-time favorite is 2001 Space Odyssey. I watch it every 1 or 2 years. So
And that's how you chose your name, your English name.
Stanley. Yeah.
So my influences are a lot less scholarly. I did not know who Isaac Asimov was as a kid, but I watched the Star Wars films. I first watched them when I was 6, and then I think I really got into films like Jurassic Park, mainly because of the visual effects and special effects technology. I found it very fascinating how those films were made. I always say the architect of my childhood is Steven Spielberg. And so Spielberg science fiction films like E.T., like Close Encounters, those were very formative for me. And I was very drawn to the idea of science fiction as building worlds, as getting lost in something different. And that was where I got into it through the firing up of the imagination, and then science fiction as social commentary, the political undertones, all of that came later. So that was where I approached it, mainly through movies more than through books.
So 2 different ways into science fiction.
Bring us together today. Yeah.
So I think you both said that came across, which was H.G. Wells, who we think of as the inventors of sci-fi in the West. What about in Asia or China? Who do you think of as the pioneers of science fiction?
Yeah, I remember I read like 小林图曼的未来. I don't know how the English title is, but it's like back in the 80s. It's the most popular science fiction in China. It sells like 3 million copies back in that date. It's just like the three-body problem nowadays in China. So it's pretty popular, but it's kind of like propaganda with a lot of like it's like promoting a lot of like communism, future imagination. Yeah, the early 80s, and to like early 90s, I came across a magazine called Science Fiction World. It was back then. It was the only science fiction magazine in China, even now. So I began to read a lot of like Chinese science fiction. So I started to know that to learn a lot of like very talented science fiction writer with a lot of traditional Chinese culture into this genre, and later I started to write by myself, and I got my first short story published on the year of 1997 when I was 16. So yeah, luckily I won the prize. It's called Characters like Juvon like Use Awards or something. Yeah, so that's how I started to write.
Where did your interest in science fiction start?
My interest in science fiction, it comes from my interest in films. As I sort of stated earlier, I started writing movie reviews for fun when I was 12. And I was writing movie reviews professionally from 18. So the genre of film that I like the most is really the big action blockbusters, and a lot of those happen to be science fiction. And I was really interested in the idea of science fiction and popular culture. That if anyone sees a picture of Spock, doing the button speed, even if they've not watched Star Trek, they can sort of tell you, oh, that looks like Spock. And how that has become part of the idiom, how science fiction is something which can bring a lot of people together, and previously perhaps it was thought of as something very literary. But I think the playing field has widened, and we see a lot of major film franchises sort of built off of science fiction. Even the Marvel movies, I would say Iron Man is science fiction, and the Avengers is science fiction. And some of it, like with Star Wars I would classify as science fiction and fantasy. But there are elements where many engineers, scientists today were influenced by that, inspired by that as children.
Some of the themes, the old theme is in Western science fiction is time travel, right? So I suppose H.G. Wells invented that with the time machine, but I know it's not very original. But one of the themes in your novel, Stanley, has been time distortion. Tell us a bit about that.
Time distortion must be my like very early short story, The Fish of Virigina. It's about like people. I mentioned in society where everyone has a different sense of time. So like lower class labor, they have the sense of time like accelerating, so they can do a lot more at a certain time. So they have a little clock like adjusting their sense. But after a while, they've got dysfunction or like a disorder of time senses. So they have to go to Yip as a therapy center, so they can have to adjust or calculating their sense of time. So on the other side, the upper class, like some higher level politicians, like some entrepreneurs, they can extend their sense of time. So even they are old enough, like 90s or even 100 years old, they can live life forever. basically my idea is like everyone have different sense of time, so we can use technology to adjust it, but it will cause a lot of social problems because it's like hierarchy.
Stratification.
Yeah, that's true. So the theme of alienation is what I'm always interested in, and I try to explore more in my stories. Yeah.
So time travel has become a kind of ubiquitous thing where Western science fiction has other writers or directors type of stories.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah.
borrowed in our own?
Yeah, right now we have a project like based on my story, so some like concept art designers from Hollywood used to do some concept art for like Spider-Man or Matrix. So it's kind of like a lot of interest in my stories. We try to build up some art concept based on the story. It's very interesting because like distortion is kind of hard to imagine or visualize. So you have to think out some image according to that concept. Yeah, maybe Jedd can have some suggestion on that. It's so professional.
Yeah, so one of the themes that I'm drawn to is the idea of mankind's relationship with technology. And that I think is the bedrock of a lot of Philip K. Dick's work. And many films have been adapted from his work, stuff like Blade Runner, Minority Report, that's based on his novel. So the idea of how machines might surpass mankind. And in the recent Alien films that Ridley Scott has done in Prometheus and recently in Covenant, there's a character named David, and then there's a second character, identical character named Walter in the sequel, overplayed by Michael Fassbender. And the idea is he's a robot who becomes sort of disenfranchised with his creators. He realizes that his creators aren't all that great. And it's interesting to see how different societies view their robots. Like in the West, robots tend to be portrayed a little bit more sinisterly, a little bit more malicious. Like the archetype of the movie robot villain is HAL 9000 from 2001: A Space Odyssey, the glowing red orb and Douglas Jermaine going, "I'm sorry, Dave, afraid I can't help you do that." So in Japan, however, they sort of view robots as helpful, and that leads to something like Baymax in Big Hero 6, which is the big cuddly, like marshmallow-like robot. So it's the cultural perceptions and how different cultures view their relationship with technology that's one of the things I'm drawn to.
I think a number of people are curious about the relationship between your work with VR and science fiction.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, VR is not a new concept. As we know, like Earth is one since like 1932 in the Brave New World or others Huxley. So he wrote something about like goggles so we can experience like through screen and some sense and smell. It's an immersive movie back in the 1930s. So after a while, right now we are in the third wave of virtual reality technology booms. So it's like the people, like the engineers, the entrepreneurs, the designers, got a lot of inspiration from science fiction, such as Neuromancer, Snow Crash, True Names, and of course the Ready Player One, the very latest one, the next year's students in the world, was Extreme. So I got a lot of like inspiration from those science fiction. Then I came across that right now the technology maybe is mature enough to come to commercialize. So I started to look into the industry and I talked to a lot of startup entrepreneurs, engineers. So we get a chance to work with some really talented engineers. So I joined this startup called Nointon. It's the spelling backward of the word motion. So some of Maggie and and some Virginia already visit our labs, so experience some projects. So it's very science fictional, I would say, because people like multiplayers can get into the same virtual environment. They can see and touch virtual stuff, and also they can combine some real object, bring it to the virtual world, so people can have the really. It's not like haptic feedback, but you can really touch it, you can grab it, and you can pass on to each other. So people will really feel immersive and feel like they really get into that world. So I think that's the future of storytelling. Maybe it's the next generation of media.
Any answer presentation?
No,
video
no.
tips? Would you like to
No,
show us some of that?
yeah, that's good. Like we have dialogue and we can discuss more, and maybe a little bit I can show some video clips. That's later.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about like Chinese science fiction movies and what I can do.
So it's like a VR, the subjectivity of reality is another theme that pops up a lot in science fiction, where the protagonist question how real the world is. Stuff like the Matrix, like Inception, and the idea that you are living in a simulation, which is some people put that forward, and there's no possible way to test that sort of abstract idea, and it's a scary thing because it's really interesting. A lot of science fiction is reactionary, so some people react to technology with fear, other people react to it with hope, and the stories that I think some of the best stories mix it, and they present different perspectives. So a lot of stories in that way are preemptive. They're taking it to its logical extreme and sort of stretching it out to see where this could end up. And virtual reality is one of the very exciting frontiers in that way.
Yes. Questions?
I suppose the big area of West versus East, which is China, maybe Stanley could explain and then also what is happening in the Chinese movie world, especially science fiction, how it present compared to the blockbusters of the West and so on.
There's this line you said in an interview which I love. It's you said that adapting Chinese science fiction into film is a lot like teenage sex. Everyone talks about it. Very few people have done it, and those who have not had a good experience.
That's very true. Yeah, because all we know, like after the three body problem, one the Google War and how to France, including Beijing, one rise again. So right now, science fiction become a big hit in China market. So like before that, like science fiction is like a pretty edgy literature genre and out of like mainstream. So but for now, like not only like the market is purchasing all this science fiction or IP intellectual properties, and also back then they will have a lot of attention to the science fiction studies. So, but right now I'm running my own studio on developing some sci-fi projects based on adaptation. I have contacted a lot of big or small companies in China. Those all of big names, we have like very close connections, but they have huge problems. Because like as we know, like fiction stories, they are one medium, but like the screenplay is another one. And we have to transfer from text to script and to the film.
Yeah, there's so many barriers.
Yeah, there are so many barriers and so many pipelines in between. But for now, like the Chinese film industry is very amateur. They can only produce some like romance, comedy, and maybe fantasy. But for for science fiction movie, sci-fi movie, they require this genre require the highest level of like production level and industrial level. So for now, all we can see around the world, only Hollywood can produce successful sci-fi movies. Not even like Europe, maybe like
Super Song.
Yeah.
He has a huge company.
Yeah. So all we can see like also there's a lot of like projects co-production with Hollywood, but also a lot of problem because the culture background is totally different, language and the character setting. So you be a white man and a hero, as you say, in the Great War. So that's totally ridiculous. So for now, only like Marvel or Disney, they can say, hey, we can have the both markets, both Chinese and American market or the world market. But for those original IPs, we can say, hey, you can only choose one side, either China or the States. So for now, like a lot of like, because China film industry is mostly like director-center system. So, but most of the directors nowadays, they don't understand sci-fi movie because they grow up in the like 60s, 70s, the age of cultural revolution.
Star Wars did not come to China.
So they don't understand what is sci-fi movie, what's the very core, what's the spirit of sci-fi movie.
It's like the grammar that people use in it.
All they can see is like CGI, special effects, big stars, monsters, aliens.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah,
it's sort of like the surface level elements because it does go a lot deeper than that.
very shallow. So they all they can do is like put all these so-called like sci-fi elements together and become some.
And then like the Frankenstein's monster.
So we have to build up like Chinese science fiction movie from the very scratch, from the story level. Because a lot of like company they purchase, they bought a lot of IPs, but after a couple of years, they don't have the capability to develop it.
So it's just like collect stars in the show.
Yeah, just like the squirrels, like collecting
Nuts.
some nuts and get ready for winter. So they don't have the ability to do it. So for now, like I try to do it by myself, but also it's very difficult because you need to come across a lot of errors, as you say. But we still have hope because a lot of like young people that grow up, was born after the 80s, people in the 90s, they grow up in the environment of science fiction, internet, comic books, video games. So they have fully understanding of science fiction. So I can see that a lot of people like grow up very fast and then get into the industry, but still they don't have the power yet. But they are all like preparing for this. So I can see that in the future.
Soon.
Yeah.
It's in their 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Stanley, following on the question, so
Yeah.
you're saying that the industry may not be sophisticated or mature enough to produce very good sci-fi movie natively in China, but how about the audience in China? Are they ready? Is there a market big enough commercially to accept such good movies if they are? So
Yeah,
if let's say you can
sci-fi
produce,
Yeah, that's another good question because all we know that like for the Chinese audience, they accepting this like a sci-fi movie style aesthetic from all from like Hollywood, from Western world. So if there is a character like with a Chinese face, like astronauts or like a scientist on the big screen, like people will laugh because I can see a lot of like superhero movies with some Fan Bingbing or some very strange or Qin Tian, you know. Yeah, very famous.
She's in everything now.
Yeah.
She's like legendary Trojan horse. You just put her in all of your movies.
Like Jing Tian universe.
Yeah, the Jing Tian universe. There's a theory. She's gonna be Pacific Rim 2 and
yeah, so like the audience are not ready yet. Because, yeah, it's very ridiculous. Like people see like a Chinese face among all these like sci-fi elements. So I think we still need to explore a way of like Chinese characteristic sci-fi movie. So because I know right now a lot of like big projects such as the three-body problem, and also by Liu Cixin's Wandering Earth right now it's open. So they're all going to some epic space opera, blockbuster sci-fi movie, but for me, I think it's not realistic because you have to start from some small or middle budget sci-fi movie with some near future concept, maybe just develop our very daily life, and just one step forward, not too far. Just as the trailer I want to show everyone is from originally from Charlie Brooker, that's from Channel 4. Black Mirror is one of my favorite. Yeah, that's the very I would call it sci-fi realistic.
yeah.
style.
And it's interesting because Black Mirror is something like Twilight Zone with science fiction elements.
Yeah.
So it is a world you recognize when you change one thing.
Yep.
And that idea is probably what is feasible for somebody or an industry with limited resources and a younger industry to break into. Because like before we move on to the clip, my perspective on it in Hollywood is that these huge budget movies, there are so many hoops to go through. And because there's so much money involved, there's so many levels of approval. And so all the executives at the top, they can veto the ideas, the visions of the director. So there's a trade-off. Like some people say the bigger the budget, the dumber the idea, right? And that's why you look at things like Transformers, which do really, really well all over the world. But there isn't really an idea behind it. Science fiction is the skin that is sort of superficially wrapped around whatever it is Michael Bay has going on. And so something like Inception, that happens very rarely. And it happens because Christopher Nolan has success at The Dark Knight. And so there needs to be grounds for filmmakers to prove themselves. And a good example of something which is like a low to mid-budget science fiction film that has become very successful is Ex Machina. And with Ex Machina, it's almost like a stage play, if you think about it. It's one setting, 3 characters, but there's some very audacious ideas, some very clever ideas, some very disturbing ideas at work. And they are realized very well because they are very judicious with their use of visual effects. They can't use a lot of it, so they sort of partition it out, Alex Garland. So I would love to see projects like that in Asia, projects like that in China, in Singapore and Hong Kong, where you have an idea that is smart enough that it does not need huge, it's smart enough, but it does not need a huge budget. So there's less hoops to jump through.
I don't know if anyone here watched this. Like, this series. This is the trailer for the first season.
Trilogy of twisted tales from Charlie Brooker, Black Mirror, coming soon on 4.
And the next one is from Netflix, the season 3.
In this world, we're also caught up in our own heads. It's easy to lose sight of what's real.
You said you don't know how much time there is. What does that mean?
It's important that you realize there is a small medical procedure involved.
Sorry for a game?
Didn't expect to find myself living in the future, but here fucking well am.
So you recently logged your first kill? Huh? And how did that feel?
They filmed me.
Filmed you?
So I can see the camera.
You ready?
If we drill down into the numbers, you have got a solid popularity arc here.
No one is this happy. A 2-year-old with a fucking balloon isn't this happy.
Singularity is when computers learn to outsmart man like women did years ago.
You are so adorable.
We're genuinely empathetic as a species. We don't actually really want to kill each other.
Gotcha.
This means fun. Or it should.
Yeah, so basically each episode they will choose one like technology and push it to the limit. So and will show like how the technology will change humanity. So mostly about everyone and all the characters ordinary people and how they respond to this extreme situation. So it's very like down to earth.
As Jedd was suggesting, that could be done on a small budget without big resources or with
Very
a
smart.
small dedicated studio. Right. Without collaboration.
And the format of something like Black Mirror is that it's an anthology series. So
Yeah.
each episode has a different cast, different setting, different director. So it's sort of like reading a collected volume of short stories by different science fiction writers in one book. And each season is like that. This latest season, because it's funded by Netflix, has more American stars. Like we saw in the trailer, Bryce Dallas Howard from Jurassic World. So there was in one of the earlier seasons a story where this woman, her husband dies, and she has a chance to have a clone, a replica of her husband, and with all of his memories. And so it's that idea of because I find that science fiction as a genre can superficially be kind of cold, but finding the emotional center, finding the resonance, and how it's not just stuff, not just things, it's people and people's connections to each other, and how that is affected, how that is changed by the advent of technology. That's something which I find can be explored if the emphasis is not necessarily on spectacle, but on the impact that the story has on you.
That's very true.
Because for the time being, what sells very well and what will always sell very well is spectacle. Like, it was very interesting. The advertising is not like this in Singapore where I'm from, but in the MTR stations there are lots of posters for Pirates of the Caribbean. And the poster tells you the worldwide gross of the box office, how much money the franchise has made. And then it says it uses the latest state-of-the-art CG visual effects, which I can understand marketing a film like that, and I think that sort of comes from Japan where there's a lot of text on the posters. But another part of me is like, hold up, if I know that I'm going to be watching visual effects and I have that in my head, then I can't get immersed in story because I know from the poster it keeps on telling me visual effects, so I know what I'm watching. I can't surrender myself to it, I can't suspend my disbelief.
It's fake.
Yeah, so, and it's different from a film critic like me watching it and someone like a regular audience member, because a regular audience member will not be going into the movie to analyze it. A regular audience member will be going to the movie to get lost, to escape. So when you have that in your mind that, oh, it's being sold on the idea that it's made with stuff, then all you'll be looking for is the stuff, right?
Yeah, I can see a lot of like younger generation audience in China market right now is getting more mature because they have the access to the internet. They can watch a lot of like from Netflix, for HBO, for all the good stuff, TV series stuff from all over the world. So they have better taste than their parents right now. So it's more difficult nowadays for the like film producer to fooling around like producing some crap and making big money. Nowadays not working anymore. So, but you can also see some like very specific like demands from the Chinese audience because I think as you said like they are more care about people more than spectacles. Like the Fast and Furious also became like that's a franchise. Those more regional ones, I guess. It's more about like emotion, like people, like relationship. That's what the Chinese audience not care about.
Yeah, and it's sort of interesting to talk about franchises and franchise potential with science fiction because nowadays you see the trend is that studios like Alibaba or like Tencent or Baba, they just invest in a Hollywood film. So part of the deal is there'll be a random Jing Tian in the movie who might not necessarily fit there, but that is part of the deal. And it is this idea of trying to cover all your bases, trying to have a story that people in Hollywood can enjoy. But it's very obvious these days when you watch a movie when you know they're trying to target China, like in Independence Day Resurgence, which ironically did do very well in China. They are in a Chinese space station drinking Chinese milk and using Chinese Skype, and Angela Baby is flying a spaceship. So then after a while you're like, hold on, clearly the only reason you did this is so that you can just like pander to this. So I think we are not necessarily there yet, the integration, but I think the potential is there, and I think there's a lot of potential in the differing attitudes that people in the East and people in the West have towards technology, like I was alluding to earlier with finding robots sinister, finding robots nurturing and kind. So I think that there is an opportunity there, and what Stanley observed when he said that seeing a Chinese face, seeing an Asian face in a science fiction setting takes audiences in Asia out of it, that makes me feel a little bit sad, because for example, the recent thing that sort of got on here, Ghost in the Shell, starring Scarlett Johansson as a character was originally called Motoko Kusanagi, and people argue that she's a robot, so she does not have an assigned ethnicity, and it could be played by anyone. But using that logic, if you're making a historical film about Joan of Arc, about Catherine the Great, about Boudica, those characters cannot be played by an Asian actress, but conceivably, Motoko Kusanagi could be played by an Asian actress. So what they were trying to do is they were saying, okay, Scarlett Johansson is a name who is well known, and she has some credibility because she's Black Widow and she's been in a bunch of science fiction movies before. So we'll put her in this and we'll build a franchise around it, but it did not work. So I think the more things like that fail, the more Hollywood has to be more introspective, because I'm not very familiar with the source material of Ghost in the Shell. But before I went to review the movie, the night before I watched the Mamoru Oshii film from 1995, the anime film. And what I realized is that Rupert Sanders, who was the director of the Hollywood version, he took a lot of the imagery from the anime film, but the imagery was removed from its meaning. Because the manga and the anime, it's very contemplative. It's about consciousness and the transcendence of consciousness. Can you be human? Can you have a soul without a body? You know, what is the significance of a shell? What is the significance of a form? And that idea, I think the people in the offices in Hollywood decided that's not going to make money. So they turned it into, she's basically Jason Bourne as the Terminator. It's all about finding out her past and who she was before her soul, her mind was placed into a robot shell. And part of the problem with that is, I won't spoil the film, but her race factors into it. And after you watch the movie, the argument she was never meant to be Japanese completely falls flat. So that I think is interesting because hopefully Hollywood starts to realize that it cannot be surface level, not just aesthetic. Things cannot look like something someone would be familiar with and that is the connection you have, because it looks like the original source material, the cityscapes that they shot in Hong Kong, it looks a little bit like what it was designed originally, but I think fans, especially of the material, can know that they've lost the meaning. And it doesn't have to be literal, because you can't literally adapt anything. I'm not very much a fan of reviews which say, this is different from the book, that is different from the book, this is different from the book, that is different from the book. Because a book is not a movie. And a comic book is not a movie, a video game is not a movie. So sort of the art of adaptation, I think that's something which some people have figured out and some people haven't.
Yeah, I have a question for you, because we get to the point of adaptation or remake. So what do you think is the most essential, successful factor to make an adaptation from the story or from the comic books? Because we both really love the Arrival. I think it's a very successful adaptation of the original story of your life, like Jedd. It's a very genius one. So I read the story a lot of times, but once I watched the movie, I also be amazed because it's out of my imagination. I never thought that it could be made in this way. So I think it's brilliant. So what do you think? What kind of thing we can do to make a successful adaptation?
Most adaptations are from novels, and the first thing that has to be done is cutting it down, because the novel is 500 pages long, but the movie is 1.5 to 2 hours long. And I think because film is a visual medium, the first thing a lot of times that the producers do in a pitch is to create an image. It's kind of like what Stanley was saying about bringing in Hollywood concept artists to visualize his story. So that, I think, is one of the first things which has to be gotten right before the film gets made, is selling the look of it. Because if you have, unfortunately, it's not the story that is very much the focus or what catches the attention of the executives, the investors, it's whether something looks cool. So there have been a lot of terrible ideas that have been sold on good-looking concept art. And like a recent example, like I read an article about why the latest King Arthur movie didn't work, the one with Charlie Hunnam, and that is the one where they announced, they went out the gate and they said they're going to make 6. I think Hollywood studios should stop saying that. Don't, even if you have plans for that, don't say it, don't tell us it's going to make 6, because that's like daring the audience to not watch it. So the investors liked the concept art because it looked cool. They liked seeing the fantasy elements. So I think that is one thing which helps a book get made into a movie. Another thing is if there are actors who are interested, because a lot of times it's an actor who is brought on as a producer first, before they find the director, before they find the writer, and if that person has cash, if that person has kind of a credibility in Hollywood, then they can take a little known idea and they can make it public. With the subject of remakes, I hear a lot of people say, and I think it is true, that the only things that we get out of Hollywood these days are sequels and remakes. But why? Why is it that way? I think part of it is because of nostalgia. Because Hollywood studios realize that nostalgia is what makes money. Recognizable IPs. They have to have a name that somebody knows. And the unfortunate part of that is all the original works get buried. Because who knows, somewhere at the bottom of a pile of screenplays in an executive's office that they refuse to read, sitting underneath there is the next Avatar. But no one bothered to have a look at it because it doesn't already have a name attached. At the same time, I don't think that sequels and remakes have to be devoid of artistic merit. If you look at the Rise of the Planet of the Apes series, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, and this year we're getting War for the Planet of the Apes, that is my sort of ideal example of what a remake should be, is the original idea that it takes. It keeps the essence of it, but it completely changes the form, completely changes the aesthetics around it. And it's challenging because when people imagine Planet of the Apes, they will imagine the Charlton Heston version, or they'll imagine the Mark Wahlberg, Tim Burton version with like Helena Bonham Carter in ape makeup. So the idea in everyone's head is that this is something a little bit silly. So what Rise of the Planet of the Apes did is it took it down to a core science fiction root. The idea of that the source of all this is because of an experiment to find a cure for Alzheimer's. So immediately you're grounding it all the way in something which doesn't seem so outlandish. Because eventually you're going to work up to apes with machine guns on horseback, which sounds crazy when I tell you, when I just say it like that or when you read it on paper. But the trajectory of it, how it develops, and how you see things get out of control, that pulls the audience in. And eventually by the time we get to War for the Planet of the Apes, which is out this year, you're like, fine, I accept this idea because I've seen how it progresses.
I think a lot of projects like in China market should like hire you as a consultant. That's very true. Yeah, I'm serious talking about this because a lot of people like as you said talk a lot about like making science fiction. Now they understand what it is.
And I think like what you said, it does make sense that Chinese film producers are targeting space operas, targeting grand, huge-scale sci-fi because that's what has appeal. That's what they look at what is popular. Star Wars is popular, Guardians of the Galaxy is popular, and Star Trek is popular. And what do those things have in common? They have aliens, they have other planets. So, but it's a very superficial reading of it. But I do think that what draws especially kids into science fiction is the idea of world building. You always hear this phrase, world building, and in reviews they'll say, I admire the world building of this writer. That means the writer crafts in a way that you can imagine it being developed. So that is probably what attracts people more than ideas. Because if you tell someone that I'm trying to sell the movie on an idea, people will laugh at you because you can't put an idea on a poster. So that is, I think something like Inception. Inception is really smart, and it has a lot of common DNA with William Gibson, sort of cyberpunk stories. But what sells Inception are the visuals. The idea of Paris folding in and of itself, the palace like flooding. So there are visuals that are built on top of the ideas, and it should be that way and not the other way around. Not ideas built on top of visuals.
Yeah, I don't know. Have you read the 3-volume novel? Not yet. Yeah, because like right now it's maybe it's the biggest project right now. It's Chinese science fiction, but I have some connection with the company who's producing this movie, but they used to do like video games or web games, so they had tons of money, but they don't have the experience of like movie production. So, but I think they can handle all this various difficulty by money. Somehow, like after 2 years, it came up with not very good results, but they already done it like 250 million RMB or so. They are thinking about like finding another Hollywood director to take it over for the original Chinese director to make an international version. So they are in a very dilemma because they got the Hollywood director to take it over, so they might like develop the Chinese version. So it means that a lot of money will be wasted. So that's a very like crucial like lesson like for those who want to make the Chinese blockbuster sci-fi movie, because as we know, like 3-volume problem is a huge world setting, a lot of like characters and also a lot of like complicated storylines all combined together. But it's a huge book. Like you have to like cut it down into a story within like 120 minutes. So gives you an epic feel.
Yeah, and it's like what you're talking about, adapting complicated, dense stories. It works out in such a way that now TV has proven very viable as a storytelling medium, and a lot of people say that TV is where all the good writers are now, where all the good storytelling is. And we have seen successful science fiction TV series in the past few years. You have stuff like Westworld and The Expanse, where those are complicated ideas, but there's enough of a budget behind it, and it's attractive enough to get huge names, people like Anthony Hopkins, to act on TV, which you would think would be a difficult sell for someone like him, as a movie star. And Westworld, it was a lot of fun to watch it and then look at the reaction online, because there'll be a lot of speculation, there'll be a lot of theories, there'll be a lot of people like isolating different frames and trying to look for clues. And I think that in a way engages the audience. And that's so, in a way that movies don't, because when you watch one movie, there might be another movie, but that will be 3-4 years later. But when you watch one episode of a TV series, there's another one next week. Or if you're watching on a Netflix, you can watch it all at once. So I think that television provides more of a direct audience engagement, and it moves into VR now, because there's a series that Sci-Fi did, which is a tie-in with VR. So the idea is every week after you watch the episode, you play the level on the Oculus Rift, and then you join back in next week. So it sort of ties it in, and I think that idea of experiencing it through different mediums and different methods of interaction with the story, that is something which lends itself very well to the genre of science fiction.
Yeah, I believe that's the future. As some media said, television is the novel of the 21st century. So do you think in the future, novel or literature will think away as other technology, other mediums such as VR or AR, or developing as a mainstream medium?
I don't think books will ever die, because I think that the power of reading is everyone pictures something differently in their head. And
to know.
Yeah, so it's like if you're reading a series, there can be descriptions of the character in the text, but your Mr. Rochester might look a little bit different from my Mr. Rochester. Yeah. And your interpretation of it, your engagement with it, I think reading forces you to create more of it, that less of it is fed to you. So reading, that's why people are more reluctant to read than to watch, because it's more work. And I admit, I'm not a huge reader of novels. I much prefer to watch movies, to watch TV shows. But I don't think that will die, because writing, if you write a book and you publish it, it's a lot of work. But it's a much less work than getting a movie made, because there's so many more steps to getting a movie made than to putting a story out. And now you can even just put it up online, self-publish, publish for free. And that is even what happened with Andy Weir, The Martian. Yeah. So The Martian came out self-published, and then it became a huge thing, and then it was the film rights were bought, and it was made into a movie by Ridley Scott. So I think that books will still exist as a foundation, as something to be built up over.
Stanley, you have quite a backlog of stories extensively to make into movies, adventure stories that we'd really like to see. Yes.
Yeah. One of my novel, The Waste Time, the television option, being purchased by a Britain independent film company. Might take a while to develop it, because but the English version will be published next year by Tor and by the head of Zeus, both in the States and UK. So I hope it
will gain traction after the English translation.
Yes. Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, but it always it's a trade-off when you see your work from a text to another medium like movies. So start to like play a role into this process because try to control something, but sometimes you know that you couldn't control everything because it's totally different industry, totally different. Yeah, you have to let go.
And it's interesting because recently with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, J.K. Rowling wrote the screenplay herself, having never written a screenplay before.
Yeah.
And she can do that because she is J.K. Rowling, because she has the cash, because she has the credibility. But a lot of times, once a writer sells the option for his or her book, that's it. That's the extent of their involvement. And they're kept out of it. And it depends on how much, how willing the producers, the director is to involve the writer. Because there can be cases where the director is like, I want to work on this project only because of this one aspect. So I'm going to remove the rest of it and replace it with something I want to see. But I'm going to keep this one thing, and I'm still going to call it that name.
Yeah.
And that can be very, very frustrating for a writer. And not only for writers of books, but writers of screenplays. When you next watch a movie, I want you to notice during the end credits, sometimes you might get story by so-and-so.
Yeah.
And then screenplay by so-and-so. So what that means is it does not mean that the people who are credited with story by came up with the idea. No, it means they wrote a draft of the screenplay that was not used. And then screenplay by is the people who rewrote it. And then maybe 5 or 10 people before that who are not even considered made enough of a contribution to be named. And sometimes how this is decided is the Writers Guild of America, they arbitrate. They go through all the drafts of the script, they try to figure out who contributed what, and then they reward the credit accordingly. But there are a lot of films that are rewritten and we actually don't know the involvement of the person until much later. Like Joss Whedon worked as a script doctor on a lot of things, and a lot of people didn't realize that. So that is another thing, because when there's a video game, when there's a movie, when there's a TV series, any multimedia sort of project, there are a lot of hands. And there are a lot more hands, kneading the dough than with a novel. So in a way, the idea is diluted and becomes less pure, but that might not necessarily be a bad thing, because it could mean that the stuff that made it inaccessible at first is like sort of molded away and carved away, and then when you have a simplified version presented to the audience, it could send them in search of the original. So there are like, that's why whenever you see a movie come out, the book is reprinted with the poster of the movie on it. Because people go and look for the book after watching the movie.
The other one is George R. Martin and J.K. Rowling. So
yeah.
Question from the audience? Sci-fi fans? Yes, sci-fi fan. Sci-fi fan.
That's for the beautiful poster.
Oh yes,
yeah.
And that is lovely poster.
That's totally different. Because nowadays we can barely see like a lot of novels or movies from an optimistic side, brighter side of the future. I think because more difficult for the author or the scriptwriter to write a future with a lot of like dramatic elements and rhythms, and there have to be a lot of acts and twisted. So if it's a bright future, it's more difficult.
The happier characters are, the more boring the story is.
Yeah.
So whenever I watch a TV show, my parents are like, look at this character, he's happy, something terrible is going to happen.
So it always has to have twisted. So yeah, but back in the 80s, last century, so there's a lot of optimistic, like utopian science fiction in China. So mostly the popular science propaganda purpose. But nowadays, I guess our kids get very used to Japanese manga, video games are full of like violence, like a dark side of the world. Like, so I'm not quite sure what kind of story we should tell them, but maybe it depends on the age of the kids. Now we can also tell some fairy tales with a neutral tone, neutral attitude, but you still, I couldn't figure out how to tell a story in an optimistic and brighter way that also can be very attractive. So maybe that's my next step.
So what I think is interesting about science fiction is it's a genre which is used very often to convey allegories, as a metaphor, where there are very mature, very dark ideas that are sort of made a little more palatable because of their packaging. And so that caters very much to adults, because just like what we saw with Black Mirror, that's all the manifestation of fear, of paranoia, not all of it unfounded. Like, there's one episode in the season which is about a guy who is filmed on his laptop camera, and then that ends up destroying his life. So after that, everyone went and pasted the sticker over his laptop camera. So what I think brings children into the genre of science fiction is imagination. It's the idea of created worlds, of exploration. I think that's very attractive to kids. And like, worlds can be very colorful, and a lot of science fiction stories, they can have aliens that are cute. And the aliens have sort of elements of different earth animals, but they have magical properties, like they can teleport. Or for example, their fur can glow in the dark, but they can turn invisible. So it is taking interesting ideas and sort of applying it to stuff that we exist, that we see every day, that sort of brings kids into that. And I don't remember for the life of me, I don't remember the title of this series, but when I was a kid, I really enjoyed this 3D animated series on TV, and it was like an animated documentary. So it was about a group of robots, and each robot had a different skill set, and they would explore a different planet of the solar system in each episode, or different moons, and the robots had personalities and would help each other out. So that was educational. And if you think about it, something like the Magic School Bus could also be classified as science fiction. And science fiction as an educational tool is what I find, that's where a lot of the possibilities are. Because you'll see exhibits like the science of Star Wars. So there'll be props and costumes, but in between there'll be little plaques telling you like who or what is the possibility of a repulsor lift, because in Star Wars the land speed doesn't float off the ground. And then there'll be a little exhibit of magnetic levitation, and kids can play with the magnets and things. So that is what I find is the potential of reaching children with science fiction, is making the learning less painful, because I realized I loved science all the way until I had to take it in school. Once I had to study science and once I had to do exams, I didn't like it anymore. But I liked it before when it was presented in a true fiction, when the possibilities seemed less finite and less depressing.
Yeah, I remember when I read Duval's novels, like 18 Days of Traveling Around the World, and like Mystic Island.
Swiss Island, Journey to Second Earth.
Yeah, actually, he's very golden age and very optimistic, mostly about adventure around the world, exploring new stuff and curiosity of the world. Trek?
Yeah, because Star Trek is very optimistic at its core. It's about a peaceful future, a future where humanity has stopped fighting with each other, that there's a united federation, and so we can focus all of our efforts not on weapons, not on war, but on exploration. And I think what is interesting is Star Wars and Star Trek are very different, because Star Wars is more or less high fantasy with science fiction elements. Instead of a sword, there's a laser sword, right? But there's a lot that Star Wars has in common with mythology, with King Arthur, with the Odyssey, with and then they take in some elements from like Japanese samurai or the Shaolin Temple, so it mixes a lot of things and synthesizes it into what is mainly a fantasy. But Star Trek is sort of about the idealism of the future, of a bright future. But in that bright future, there are conflicts. There are alien races which are focused on war. Right. There are like the Klingons, the Borg, and it was quite interesting in Star Trek Into Darkness, which is the second J.J. Abrams film. There's a scene where Uhura goes to try and communicate with the Klingons, and she asks for their help to defeat John Harrison, defeat Benedict Cumberbatch, and the Klingons are like, why should we help you? And Uhura says, because you value honor, and this man has none. So it's trying to reach an idea, and it's not just a translation of the language, it's a translation of the ideas.
I have a question concerning about the current Chinese science fiction novels and movies, because like the huge, the very famous Korean novel and very very famous basically novel, because we can see many new technology, science technology in the grand universe of our whole world. But I'm wondering that I can see that the ideas and the social structures and like political system in that universe, it stays at the present. It doesn't incline the future. I think some ideas of these aspects are actually very old. So but in some Western science fiction like X-Men, they're trying to convey some new ideas such as the tolerance of the minorities, of the mutants. But I cannot see these kind of ideas in Chinese science fiction. So how can you give some reviews of these kind of?
Yeah, I think the same problem exists in the three-body problem as well. So I think mostly because our authors are their education background, like engineering, physics,
hard science,
hard science. But if you read like a very famous and science fiction writer like Ashra Lakwi, it's a very famous utopian sociology scientist. So the novel is mostly about alternative social structures and also alternative genders. So because one very famous one is called the left hand of darkness. Yeah, that's the very good example. So she created a world without gender, so everyone is homogenic or androgenic, so they would transfer their gender every month. So she discussed a lot of social issue under this extreme circumstance. So I think that's a very good idea, but so far, as you said, in Chinese science fiction, not so many this kind of issues, sex, genders, or social, even marriage, families. So I think when more people, more younger generation writer, they have different backgrounds, they begin to write something speculative stories, to explore more possibilities. I believe there will be more alternative Yeah. Personally, I love that kind of stuff, and I'll write something as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting because it's approaching science fiction as metaphor, as allegory.
Yeah.
And when kids read X-Men comics in the 60s, that was at the height of the civil rights movement. So it could be seen as the mutants, people who are different, are minority races in America, you know, the black people. And also there are a lot of, there were gay kids who read it and said that I'm different. So they see themselves in that. And the creators of X-Men were Jewish. So it is the idea of that the disenfranchised, the people who feel like they're outcasts of society, whoever they are, and however different the ways that their outcasts are, they can see themselves in that. I think that idea, it comes from a progressive place. I'm not sure how progressive the politics of China is. I'm willing to guess not very, but it's fun to see the possibilities for that. And in a lot of space opera stories, you have the idea of many different species and how the species have to coexist and how they settle their differences. And even Star Trek very early on tackled the issue of racism with the race that has a white color face on the left and a black color face on the right, and then they haven't, in the same species, they have the right, it's swapped, and then they are at war just because of that difference. So I like the idea of using science fiction as a vehicle for commentary, but at the same time I think that it's a lot more attractive or a lot more accessible to people at large to look at the aspect of science fiction that is material, to look at the stuff, the gear, you know, all the things that sell toys. So it is sort of a balance between those two. It is what looks cool, what can you sell, but what message can you convey in that graphic, you know?
Yeah. And also I think the ideology of Chinese society is kind of like monopoly. So there's like you couldn't see a lot of like minority because they are all like pretty much Han. So yeah, and also we don't have those like counterculture like
LGBT.
Yeah, LGBT, hippies. We don't have like those subcultural stuff.
It's all like mandated.
Yeah. So it's basically from a very early age, from kids, we all be educated to like perform, acting, like living in the same pattern. So it's difficult for people, even the authors, to imagine an alternative way of living. So that's the key problem.
Yeah, I think it's that way in Singapore as well, where it's all about conformity. It's all about what school you end up in and the expectations that you have to meet of your parents.
Yeah.
Where you're railroaded from birth, you know, and you're just told that whatever dreams you have, put them aside. Nice to have dreams, right? But not practical to pursue them. And it's a very pragmatic society, and I understand the reason for that is because Singapore was young, and then when they separated from Malaysia, if Singapore did not become successful very fast, it would die. And so that was ingrained in the culture. And right now, the Singapore government is like, no, but we support the arts too. And at one point of time, our late founding Prime Minister, he said this very famous line, he said, Singapore does not have the luxury of poetry. And I find that is baked into us as a people. So I'm very grateful for my parents, that my parents are, they are progressive enough to encourage me to pursue what I like, even though I don't make a lot of money yet. But yeah, so it's that's I think that goes to the society and how the society perceives itself, how the society views itself, and how society views the outside. So science fiction is a way to rewrite how you look at yourself. Like there's a possibility, I want it to change, but I can't effect the change in real life. What if it were like this? I think that is the idea. Like it would be interesting if someone wrote a science fiction story about an alternate reality in which there's no PSLE, there's no primary school leaving examination in Singapore. What impact that would have? Because in Singapore, there's a high stakes examination at when you're age 12, and then you get sorted into the grade. So a lot of children feel like their life is defined for them at the age of 12, and then they don't get good grades, and then they commit suicide. So I think that you see a lot of that in Asian societies in places like South Korea, like China, like Japan, yeah. And I think what a lot of children find appealing about science fiction is the idea of escape. And I think that's why Star Wars is so popular, because Star Wars is such a rich world, and there are elements of it that are so exciting and so different, but there are also aspects of it that you can recognize. And when anyone watches A New Hope and sees Luke standing in that homestead watching the binary sunset over Tatooine, you know that you have that feeling of contemplating what's next, of wondering what happens to you as you enter into adulthood. So it's just that idea is universal, but it's portrayed in a fantastical way. I think that's the power of science fiction.
That's